I wish I could be able to get in because it starts recording before.
It's recording now, I think.
I know, yeah, now it is. Okay, welcome everyone. We are here. It is September 9th, 2020. And we, feels like almost a new year is starting because school is starting now. We've all, those that have kids, 6 months basically of spring break has been happening. So um, my name is Dr. Taylor Bean. I am a naturopathic doctor here in Maple Ridge, British Columbia, Canada. And I have got connected with Emma Roman, who is an environmental engineer. And we're going to talk about all things environment today, which I'm so up my alley. I love talking about environmental health, what that means. I've made my own personal little changes. Each month, I try and make a change to better the health of my family and what that means. And so I've kind of alluded to that in some of my other interviews. And if you're on my email list, I've talked a little bit about that because I'm all also about the immune system. We talk about the immune system a lot. And I think it's important to talk about not necessarily what supports it, but maybe what harms it. And I think people are missing that part of, we really focus on supporting what that means. But I really do think sometimes we need to shift our focus on what are we doing that's maybe preventing it to work as best as possible. Are the things you're doing that's slowing it down, affecting its function? And what about your kids? What are you doing within their environment and their life? And that could be affecting its function to work optimally. So yeah, Emma, let everyone know who you are and what you do. And because you've got so much to share. You've got an incredible background. So I want people to hear it.
Sure. Thanks for having me. If you change the view to gallery view, it'll show us side by side. Right now, it'll just show our single
No,
faces,
you
by the
know
way.
Zoom well. We've done this before.
Yes. So hi, everybody. My name's Emma, and I have two children, and I'm an environmental engineer by education, and I'm the founder of Green at Home. And I have shifted from my career in green buildings. I worked for over a decade as a professional consulting engineer and green building consultant. And when I had my kids, I really kind of took what I had learned in my engineering degree and my work greening and making indoor spaces healthier in high-rise office towers and big residential developments, and really honed that in on our individual homes. And I'm on a mission to help mothers become more empowered and informed to make decisions that are going to support themselves, their families, and ultimately our communities and the planet on a whole. It sounds like a big lofty goal, but I'm a firm believer in everybody being able to contribute to a better future.
Yeah. I mean, now more than ever. I mean, this
Yeah.
is the beauty even of, I think, with having forced to slow down is we've been able to really take a look at our lifestyle and what we're doing, and kids aren't going to school. So yeah, I think people really do. This is a topic that there's bits to this topic that are uncomfortable. And, and with any subject matter that's uncomfortable, I mean, it's like, I'm not ready to talk about that. I don't even want to know, because the
Yes.
more you know, then now you're responsible even for the decision that you make. I mean, ignorance is bliss. It really is sometimes.
It completely is. And when I started, because I had been doing a lot of what I'm doing in my home now, like I started with greening my cleaners when I was in university. And I was in environmental engineering, but my friends still kind of laughed and joked that I was the hippie one. And I started eating more organic food, and I just became more conscious and aware of all these things from an environmental perspective. But when I had my kids and when I started really doing the deep dive research project, I actually wanted to learn that none of it mattered. I wanted to go back to being quote unquote normal
Yeah.
And I wanted to find out that it was all just hype and blown out of proportion. And so I get it. It is a lot easier to kind of put your head in the sand and not learn these things because you can't unlearn it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, toxins and our environment don't really care if you know what they're doing to you or not. They're still affecting us. And so through my research, I didn't learn that I could stop doing what I was doing. And it led me to kind of double down, but also speak up more, because the whole topic of environmental toxins is kind of wrapped in all of this shame and guilt and fear. And it is a hard topic to unravel because of that. Nobody likes to learn that they've been doing something that could be harming themselves or their family. And talking about all the things you talk about, like,
Yeah.
it's hard topics, but it's time that we have these conversations. And I think there are ways to have the conversations and ways to learn these things without totally disrupting your life or,
Yeah.
making you completely freak out.
Yeah, no, it's a great point, because I think we go through a process, and shall I call it a grieving process, because it's like shock to anger to you're just so upset, and then okay, let's make a change. And so you kind of go through these waves of like, no way,
Yeah.
I've been doing this the whole time and that wasn't good for me. I mean, it's on the shelf to buy, and it's clearly must be okay if you're allowed to sell it. But it's like, well, not necessarily. I mean, it's in small dosages, perhaps it's fine, but maybe over time it's not. And the research isn't there to say, wholeheartedly that it's a problem. But as time goes on, we learn otherwise what we're doing is a problem. And there's multiple examples of that in our history, of things we said was okay, and now we know absolutely black and white, it is not okay. And if you're going to do it, there is a big risk when you do it. And so we're learning about those things. And there's a lot of toxins out there, perhaps, that we don't know them, and we don't know what they can do to our body because there's no research around it, or you don't even know they exist yet. So as time goes on, we learn about these things and then take a stand of like, okay, now I know, now I'm going to make a change. And you can start making small changes in the home. Like, what are some of the most common things, or the easiest things people can start making in their own home?
The place that I tend to start with people are the kind of easy consumable products like personal care products and cleaners, because we are using them every day. They're pretty affordable. You run out of something and you swap it out with a new kind of product. And I like starting with personal care products because it is one of the few products that we use in our home that have to list ingredients on the label. And so it helps you start exercising and flexing that label reading muscle, which, even though most products can't or don't have to list all of the ingredients on the label, there are clues and things that you can use to read labels more effectively. And so personal care products helps bring that kind of skill into your daily routine a little bit easier.
Yeah.
And with personal care products, depending on how much you use, and this is where a lot of people start. So some of you might already have started changing some of your products over already. Where I find people get hung up with these is they switch out a few, and then new brands come on the market and they sort of are like, oh, I haven't tried this one. And so you kind of get stuck in this wheel of just focusing on a single product. Like, you're only switching out your shampoo, but you're trying a whole bunch of different ones, or sunscreen or makeup or whatever, instead of looking at what you're using as a whole. And the same thing with cleaners.
Yeah.
So being able to understand what you're looking for, what you're trying to avoid, and finding brands that work, and then moving on instead of continuously trying to try the next best thing. Simplicity is your friend when it comes to switching
Yeah,
out these
totally.
products.
Are you looking for stamps on the bottle? For example, if it's environmental working group stamped or organic stamp, or is there something that's a quick, I know this is a good product?
Unfortunately not. There's, I always recommend that you sit back and kind of understand what you want to achieve when you're reducing toxins in the first place. You know, for some people, you might have immediate health needs that you need to address. You might have asthma or allergies or eczema or things that you're going to want to avoid certain ingredients more specifically and faster than other things. With things like, so I love label reading apps. So you mentioned EWG, they have their EWG verified seal on them. And I still recommend, even if it's got a certification or a seal or a great sounding marketing language, I still recommend that you turn the package around and look at what's actually in it, because a lot of the marketing language will say what's not in it. So you'll see a bunch that say like phthalate free or paraben free, but you don't know what they've replaced those with.
Oh, I see.
So I mean, EWG verified is decent, but it might not work for everybody.
Okay.
And so you can use the EWG Skin Deep app, or I prefer the Think Dirty app, which you can put on your phone, and it has a very addictive barcode scanner that you can go around, and it will rate the product on a scale, both of them will rate it on a scale of 0, which is clean, to 10, which is dirty. But I recommend, again, drilling down into the full ingredient list. So it'll give an overall score for the product, but then you can click down another layer and you can see all of the ingredients and what those score as. And so their databases, they're generic tools that are better than nothing, but you still need to make sure that you're understanding kind of the inputs so you know how you're making the decision based on them. And it's a great place to start. It just kind of strips out some of the ingredient label reading fatigue.
Now, in your work, do you teach people what each of these ingredients are, like what they mean? Do you do that?
Not all of them, because there's hundreds, but so I do have a training that walks through how to use these label reading tools and how to read labels using them, but also on your own, and identifying some of the key ingredients of concern. You know, there's lists out there like the David Suzuki Foundation and Environmental Defense and EWG. They all have their kind of toxic 10, dirty dozen kind of ingredient lists. And those are good catch-alls for things that you can start to pay attention to. But what I've found is they don't do a great job at identifying things like allergens or sensitizing ingredients. And so I have a list that's slightly longer, and then other brands have like 1,500 ingredients that they don't include in the products. And that's not very helpful either, because nobody's going to remember 1,500 different ingredients.
So a product could have like 1,500 ingredients in it and they don't have to list that, because it'll be one name and that name means many things under it.
Well, the brands that have they just have their list of chemicals that will never be in their products. And so some of them are massive lists. For personal care products, all of the ingredients have to be listed with the exception of fragrance. So fragrance, you'll see that one word, or parfum in Canada, and that can include any number of hundreds of different ingredients to make that fragrance. There are fragrance disclosure laws that are starting to come out now. California tends to lead the way with things. And so once California passes laws, in order for a product to be sold across the US, they'll usually just make it for the entire line.
Right.
But right now, there's a loophole because the fragrance industry has a very strong lobby group, and they don't need to disclose everything. When you look on websites, a lot of the bigger brands like Procter and Gamble and Unilever and those sorts will sometimes have a here's what may or may not be in our fragrance.
Mhm.
And I've spot checked those lists before, and they are getting cleaner, but they still often contain hormone disruptors, asthmagens, allergens, and some carcinogens even.
Okay, let's talk about endocrine disruptors. I think people need to hear this part. What, for example, uh, fragrances or smells, things like new car smell, new couch smell, are these, that and other things? What does it mean to be an endocrine disruptor per se?
Yeah, so I guess those are kind of two separate issues. So all of those new smells are caused by VOCs, or volatile organic compounds, and different chemicals are VOCs, and it just means that they are released into the air quite readily. Not all VOCs are bad. A lot of them are, and they can be carcinogenic, they can be respiratory irritants, and they can be hormone disruptors. So hormone or endocrine disruptors are, again, another big class of chemical that act in the body in a few different ways to disrupt the way that our natural hormone systems work. So our hormones work like lock and key kind of mechanisms. And so hormone disrupting chemicals can either mimic our natural hormones, they can block the way that the receptor sites work so that our natural hormones can't attach and then trigger a response that should happen. And they can also disrupt how our bodies process our hormones. So they can affect how estrogen gets dealt with in the liver, for example. And the thing about hormone disruptors that has made me focus on them a lot more is that the research is showing that because they do such a good job at mimicking hormones, which are in our bodies in such low concentrations and affect every system in us, because hormone disruptors do such a good job at mimicking them, it does not take very high concentrations of these chemicals to affect change. And so a lot of the myths around toxins kind of comes from the dose makes the poison, and people say, oh well, we don't have enough of these chemicals in our shampoo or body lotion or cushions to cause any harm because they're below a certain threshold. But what we're seeing with hormone disruptors is they don't act that way. They're not linear. And so we can see they can cause harm in the body at very low concentrations, maybe nothing in the middle, and then again at high doses, or the inverse. They all act kind of in different ways, but very low concentrations are found to be affecting us.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's why I'm talking to you. I need to hear this stuff. I need everyone else to hear this because this is your expertise. And I think people are starting to catch on, understanding in terms of there's more products out there that are more natural. And what does that mean? And, changing up and using essential oils more. And just, using there's two or three items within that product. But then it's like, well, but why am I doing this? Like, why is this a thing when people are kind of talking about it, but I don't feel like big people are talking about it. And so I can feel that it's coming, it's moving. Yes. There's a movement. And yes, when there's more research to show and understand how the mechanisms work, then people will take it more seriously, or at least demand for change. And yeah, because in a household, you can have just a slew of, toxicants floating around. And I've been trying to, from no plastics to, I use stainless steel plates and bowls and cups and glass, if possible, and cast iron pans and no Teflon, and then all of our topical things changing out, and water. And so it's a lot at once when you think about it, but when you can just sort of do little slices, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people forget too, is that, yeah, the small amounts in an individual product, it's not like if you use a shampoo with parabens in it, you're going to develop breast cancer. Like it's not a direct link, which also makes the research very difficult. And so it's taken decades of our exposure of these chemicals to kind of build the case for the low dose impacts and cumulative impacts as well. And to your point earlier, like we have a very long history of introducing chemicals to market. In North America, we have a post-market regulatory system. And so chemicals can be introduced without having full toxicological testing. And we essentially are the guinea pigs. And so it takes time for these effects to build up, consumer and environmental interest groups to kind of raise a flag that there might be something up. And we see this pattern over and over and over again. And one of the current ones is BPA. Mm-hmm. I forget when it was, but a while ago now, like plastic water bottles and Nalgene kind of became headline news, with BPA being a hormone disruptor and it being in water bottles and in baby bottles. And so it was ultimately banned for use in baby products specifically. And so because public awareness became much more strong, a lot of brands proudly declare the BPA-free label on products, even if it's not mandated, because the public knew that it was a problem. And so you look for the BPA-free label. However, because the process takes so long to build that public awareness and get regulatory changes, industry has quite a lot of time to come up with a replacement. And with BPA, we're seeing that you can have BPA free on the package, but again, it doesn't tell you what they've replaced it with. And BPA is being replaced with so BPA is bisphenol A. And so bisphenol is that kind of class of plastic, and it's being replaced with bisphenol S or F, BPS or F. And the research is showing that they show similar hormone disrupting properties as BPA. And I just read a study that came out last month. I think that it's also potentially linked with asthma. So, hormone disruptors, people think that it's a reproductive issue or a women's health issue or just children's issue, but our hormones affect every gland in our body, right? And so the effects are quite broad.
Yeah. So there's a question that came through are any plastics safe then? And even when you heat up plastic, then there's breakdown that happens there. But I mean, is there any plastic on the market that, for my opinion, would be no? I would, because it can break down so easily, and for micro, I don't know if there's like micro bits, but I mean, stainless steel and lead-free glass are kind of the things that are, maybe bamboo is what I've been using. But what is your take? Or silicone?
Yeah.
I mean, I have silicone reusable baggies that I use, that have the top on. And so I've been using those. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
So plastic is one of those, it's an interesting thing because it has its benefits, but it also definitely has its problems, right? So when you're looking at if we're looking at your kitchen and detoxing your kitchen and getting rid of things, if you have a lot of plastic food storage containers, it's going to be incredibly expensive to chuck them all and replace them with everything else. So I tend to recommend that you use plastic more safely and then start to kind of slowly get it out over time. Soft cling wrap would be something that I would get out faster, more quickly, because there are so many easier options. Harder plastics are going to be less risky of migrating into your food as long as you're not heating it. So if you've got plastic containers that you use for leftovers and whatnot, and you're slowly transferring over to other things, don't reheat it in the microwave. Don't put hot food in them right out of a pot and then stick it in the fridge. Let the food cool down first. I still use some plastic containers for kid snacks because they don't break and they're fairly durable. Most of their stuff is in stainless steel lunch containers. So there are definitely safer plastics, but heat is the biggest risk with plastic. And the softer the plastic, the more likely it's going to contain phthalates. And I've mentioned that a lot. Phthalates are one of the hormone disruptors, and that's what makes it soft and flexible. But the problem with phthalates is they don't bind to the substance they're used in, so they are readily released into food or hands or whatever is nearby.
Okay.
And silicone is,
yeah,
it's fairly new as a product, and so it doesn't have the same level of research behind it. However, what we know of it does seem to be more inert than a lot of other plastics. As with most things, especially around food and children, I recommend buying from a very reputable brand, something that is ideally made in North America, that has testing that shows that it's lead, phthalate free. Stasher is a brand that I tend to recommend. They're kind of the original ones, and reducing dyes as well, because you can get into a lot of higher risk situations, especially with products made overseas that are tinted, because that's where some of the heavy metal contamination can come in.
Okay. Yeah. I use Planet Box for my kids' lunch boxes. That's, I mean, for a couple of years, they're incredibly durable, and
I have Lunchbots. They don't have sealed compartments. I have like separate things for sealed ones, but they're a bit more affordable. And considering my kids went for a big span of losing a bunch of stuff, that was my compromise.
Fair enough. What about your thoughts on bamboo? Can you heat up bamboo? Do you know much?
Yeah, so bamboo, it depends how it's made, because a lot of those wood-based products have adhesives in them, like they're kind of made with strips that they're glued together and then have some sort of sealant on it. So there are products that are made with a good food grade sealant and whatnot. So I would probably avoid heating on bamboo just because of the glue migration potential. But I think using a well-made brand from time to time is fine.
Do you list on your website by chance companies that you approve? Do you go
for some products? So I have a online shop where I have brands that I use and love for certain products, and then I go into more detail in some of my guides, so personal care products and cleaners, and then some of my courses where I talk more specifically about whole home type strategies.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Now, the big topic, of course, is going to be immune system. And now more than ever, we are more understanding, more people understanding how the immune system works, which is great. Yes. But then there's more questions, and then maybe there's myths, and then there's but it's confusing, and I'll admit the immune system is incredibly confusing. I'm taking a massive course right now just to learn more about it in detail. And so, because I want to know what affects the immune system, and how I, as in my place as a naturopathic doctor, then how can I help my patients to, like, well, this area and this area and this area. I mean, there's some things that I'm certainly understand, from food and sugar, stress, and how these things do dampen the effectiveness of the immune system. But from an environmental health standpoint, what are your thoughts on, from particulates, from plastics, hormone disruptors? I mean, the smells, will this play a role in, the immune system and dampening its function?
Yeah. So I'm also the farthest thing from an immune system expert, but it fascinates me. Our bodies are wonderful. But so environmental toxins can affect our immune function in a whole bunch of ways. One is because most of our immune system resides in our gut. And so bacteria and healthy bugs in our body play a big role. And we've seen, even before COVID, we saw a big shift towards antibacterial, antimicrobial, everything.
Right.
And so that and reducing the amount of bacteria that we're exposed to, spending more time inside instead of outside, that showed an impact on the swing towards increased asthma and allergies. And so over cleaning and having too clean of a home, that's kind of, I think, one of the first things that we started to see in terms of the impact that our product choices and habits could have on our immune system. Second would be, and particularly relevant now, I think, lung function. I mean, you referenced particulate matter and VOCs, and all of these kind of chemicals can have a direct impact on the lungs and how well they are performing and how well they're able to do their job, not only for breathing, but also clearing stuff out that doesn't belong.
Yeah.
And then there are certain environmental toxins that specifically act on our immune system. And they're called immunotoxins. And two examples of those are PCBs and dioxins. And these are things that you won't necessarily find on product labels, but they contaminate our soil and our water and therefore our food supply. So we're kind of exposed to them without knowing it necessarily. Toxins can also deplete glutathione, which is an important antioxidant for a number of things, but glutathione helps detoxify. So it's kind of this vicious cycle, because the more toxins we have, the less the glutathione can do that. And it's also thought to be an important component of a healthy immune system. And toxins can also damage our mitochondria, which are, again, multi-purpose little pieces in our body. They're the energy source for our cells, and they're also thought to be a critical component of a healthy immune system. So the more our bodies are in toxic overload, and this includes environmental toxins, toxicants, it includes stress, it includes poor sleep, lack of movement, all of these things kind of build up on one another to stress our immune systems and make it so that they're not able to fight things off as well. And then there's also research showing that another study that I just read in a digest today too, shows reduced antibody production. So it can affect the way that vaccines perform.
That I would love to read that, actually. Yeah. That's really interesting. Because one point I'm going to bring up too is, I have patients who ask me, so do I really need to be on a probiotic? Like, does everyone actually need to be a probiotic? And I said, you know what? If you lived, maybe let's take Northern British Columbia, where I have a patient that lives in Northern BC. They hunt, they grow their own food, rich soil, this kind of environment. I'm like, well, they probably don't need to be on a probiotic, they're eating the food from the land and they're not spraying it with herbicides and pesticides, and it's beautiful food that they're eating and very clean water. But the rest of us who are going to be eating food where you do not know if Roundup has been sprayed on your food, and understanding the effects of glyphosate specifically on your microbiome, well, yes, that is going to kill off and downregulate the concentration diversity of your good bacteria within your gut. Therefore, you have got to do something to keep up that balance. And so be it that's a spore-based probiotic, which I love, or a human strain probiotic. And then you better have some good prebiotics in there as well to feed everything. So you go organic is why you go organic, is so that you decrease the exposure to that. And then you have to increase an uptake because you don't know the other foods. You can't see it. You have no idea what's in it. And then another thing is buying organic. So Dr. Stephanie Seneff, who I'm sure you know, she's an MIT researcher and she's all about glyphosate. So she was at a conference and she said, the food that comes out of Europe, non-organic, is cleaner than the organic that comes out of California. I was like, okay. So then now when I go to the store, I'm like, well, I really want strawberries, but they're from California. All right, well, let's maybe do a carton a month, shall we? And because I have these things that go in my mind, which is, it becomes irritating, but it's like, well, if we could just be a little bit more honest about our food sources, I wouldn't have to think about it so much and be like, just give me clean food. You don't have to tell me what's not in it because I know there's nothing in it. And then you have a subsection of food. You tell me what's in it. And I just, nope, I don't, you should be telling me all of your lists, basically a billboard of things that are in your food. And then this farmer over here doesn't have to tell me what they're not doing, because it's a straight up clean. And so but anyways, these are the things that when you learn these things, you can't unlearn them. And then you're, it's like, all right, well, I wish I just had a huge farm. I could just grow my own food, but I don't. But then this is why you try to buy local, organic food. And then in the seasons, buy a bunch and freeze it. And then you can use it later in the winter months. So it should be more of a priority anyways. And I think it's becoming more of a priority, but I'm the one that buys the food for the house. So I make it it's a big priority and I make those decisions for the family. Yeah. And so it's just easy because I'm the one dealing with, which I'm totally happy to. And I don't, it is more expensive, but it's about preventative medicine. I mean, I want my kids to be thriving and healthy, and I don't want to have to deal with issues if I can prevent them. And if I know that doing XYZ at high amounts may lead to this, well, then I'm going to go over here and do that. I mean, that is the empowerment piece, the understanding piece, and the preventative piece. So yeah, I mean, yes, my kids eat things that, aren't the best, when we're out on vacation and we live a little, absolutely. But if I'm going to do chicken nuggets, I buy from, a good butcher, the chicken, and then I'm using, an oat ground base. And so those are chicken fingers. And so it's the same thing, but it's just it's a different, a more improved product of the same thing. So they get to still have that, but I'm being very mindful of what goes in their body. And I've always said from day one, like, I don't care really what clothes they wear. I care what goes in their mouth. I mean, that is my absolutely. And so anyways, that's.
Well, and I would like to get to the point where people are more willing to invest a bit more in the prevention side of things, because we don't think about it until it's too late. And then we are forced to invest in being sick. And, it's a hard concept because you don't know if you're going to get sick until it happens. And, to your point, how far is too far before you stop being able to enjoy your life? And I think that's kind of the balance that we all need to find. But going back to the organic food argument, I mean, there has been a lot of research showing that eating organic does reduce your body burden of pesticides. Mm-hmm. Organic isn't pesticide free, but it does reduce your body burden of the known toxic pesticides. But the other thing is that, looking at the food coming, to your point about the organic food coming out of California, I mean, California has such a huge swath of industry and non-organic farming that the soil, the air, the water is just so polluted in general. And what are we doing to the farmers who are working on these things? It's not, I mean, our own intake and health is important too, but think of the people who are using these chemicals on a daily basis in much higher
Sure.
concentrations. Same with Teflon. Like, I'm not actually all that concerned if you're using a non-scratched Teflon pan at fairly low heat with food in it. The transfer is going to be minimal. What I'm more concerned about is the fact that Teflon has poisoned water systems for communities forever. And it's a chemical that should not be made or manufactured. And I don't think we should be supporting it. So it's like taking the kind of micro level and the benefits that we can have directly so that we can stay healthy enough to fight for the people who have been impacted by ultimately our buying decisions for so long. So it is definitely important for us, but it's also bigger than us.
Yeah, that is such a good point. I mean, I'm forgetting the name, but it's a relatively new movie that came out about Teflon.
Yeah, there's two. The Devil, Netflix did a documentary, and then Mark Ruffalo did a like Hollywoodized version. They both tell the same story. Just one is more of a Hollywood movie, but they're great. They're excellent films.
And so, I mean, of course, it's like, okay, throw the Teflon, but you really nailed that point about the people involved in the industry, which we don't really think about, which we should think about, because I mean, the farms, the cattle, the people, and so, the whole A to Z aspect of it, we do need to be a lot more aware of. And yes, I mean, Monsanto was a huge, were sued for a huge amount of money as a result of that one case, and perhaps there's more. Hey, sweeties, can I ask you to go out, please? Just because you're gonna be really loud, that's all. Farrah, honey, come on. Anyways, whatever. This is how it is.
Yeah, we're all in the same boat.
Yes, so let me see some questions. How can we get Congress to pass more laws on regulation, on more regulation? I mean, I mean, it really starts with the people, you guys. We are the people that when you want something done, you have to say something. You need to voice your concern. Being mute is it's not helpful anymore. And so you can wait and hope someone else deals with it. Or yes, you can actually stand up and be like, you know what, I'm going to just send an email of my concern to my MP, my MLA, or Congress, or wherever you live in the world. That's how things get going. That's how it starts. And you're allowed to do that. You are free to do that. You can have of your concerns and share with that. And then you start meeting other people, and then there's a next level you can go, and a level after that where then bylaws come in, and then change happens because there's so much of concern that these companies have to make a change. They have to better their product. Otherwise you're not going to buy it. If you stop buying it, they're like, well, what's happening? I mean, clearly something's wrong. What do we need to do? We need to sit down because our sales are dropping. Each quarter, everything's go down. Like, well, the people don't want to buy it because it's not a good product for them anymore. And this is why. So change, and you need to be more transparent. And I think companies realize the more transparent I am, yes, people are going to buy my product because you're like, this is what's in it and this is what's not in it, period. And so, and because we are more savvy buyers now, and we have to be, because it's like, well, the health of our community, the health of each generation of children is getting sicker and sicker, you guys. I mean, as a naturopathic doctor, I see it in my office. And so I'm getting to the point where I'm getting angry about it, because it's like, why I love treating and supporting children is because it's a whole family unit that I get to help. If I'm helping, mom and dad, awesome, but maybe that doesn't trickle down into the children. But if you need to change this for your kiddos, you're going to make a household change. And so we need the next generation to be healthier.
And generational change too, right? Like you've probably seen the pictures of like the grandmother is the pregnant woman, and then the mother is the fetus, and then me pointing to the ovaries. Like the
Yeah.
changes that the earlier we can make changes, and this is where, you know, a lot of people wait until their child is born and start to use more natural products on baby, but no, it needs to start long before that. I mean, my health is affected by the fact that my mom was in Florida when they were spraying God knows what for
Right.
mosquitoes, right?
Right.
And similarly, like my grandparent, like my grandmother, what her exposures were is in me now as well. And so we can start that, we can change this trajectory we're on. And like the World Health Organization has acknowledged that, and the European Environment Agency, which is like their health agency too, is that cancer and reproductive issues are increasing faster than we can explain by genetics. The rate of increase is no longer simply because we are getting older or because and because of the Genes Act. It is environmental exposures are absolutely playing a role in this. And when I was pregnant and when my babies were little, like looking in moms groups and stuff, eczema came up every now and then. But now I think every third comment almost in moms groups is, how do I deal with my baby's eczema? And so we've kind of numbed out to this idea that eczema and allergies and asthma are just this rite of passage for children, that they, you know, it's just normal. And I really want us to not settle for
Oh, I know.
health issues as being normal. Like
No,
it's
oh God, you just nailed it. Because we do not normalize this.
No.
People do not normalize it. And so I hear you, because I see it in my clinic as well, of like, this is, you know, I mean, it could be from anything of, oh, I have pain when I have my period, or I have headaches all the time, or I can't sleep anymore. And it's like, it's not, don't normalize this. This is not normal. Everyone else has gas and bloating. Everyone else, all my kids' friends have eczema. So it doesn't mean that it's okay. It doesn't mean it's normal. My kids don't have eczema. So does that make mine abnormal? No, I mean, the human body is meant to be just progress and age, you know, with maybe a couple hiccups and flaws.
Yeah,
but
nobody's going to be perfect, but
sure.
and you know, we aren't going to be able to cure everything. It's not like everybody is going to be totally 100% healthy, but I think we need to care a bit more to try not to have like just getting by as our baseline. And we're seeing like earlier puberty in girls is kind of the next big thing that we're starting to see. And again, I'm seeing it be normalized as well, where others are saying, oh yeah, my daughter got her period at 9, it's no big deal. And this is a big deal because it's not normal, and it is linked with other health issues, and it is something that our environment is shifting this for kids. And so the more we can be aware of this, and the more that we can speak up, and to the point of how can we work to get laws changed. I mean, there are lots of organizations that are working on this. And so following the environmental organizations and the environmental health organizations to see what campaigns they're already running means you don't need to do extra work, right? You'll probably get emails from them, and you can sign petitions, and they'll have form letters for your congressperson or your MP, wherever you are, and you can just piggyback and add to their existing campaigns. I don't think we need to be constantly recreating the wheel. Beauty Counter is they make products, but they are incredibly active in the US as well as Canada in pushing Congress to make changes in the personal care and beauty product regulation space. They're doing a fantastic job. So following them and seeing what they're doing, and they make it super easy. You can like text a certain thing to a certain number to get your name on a petition. So there is movement, and there is, like I mentioned them before, Environmental Defense and David Suzuki Foundation in Canada are probably two of the main ones. And then EWG and some others in the US as well.
Yeah.
So you don't need to like start a whole grassroots movement on your own. If that's not your jam, you can just add your voice to a kind of groundswell that's already in motion.
Yeah. Oh, amazing.
And vote with your dollar.
Yeah.
It matters.
It's really actually quite easy. I mean, I've met, I've called in and made a meeting with 2 MLAs. It was sat down, this is pre-COVID. And it was really good, actually. It was great to actually get in there. It was not on this subject matter, it was on a different subject matter, but it was a good 30 minutes with, 3 other people. And we got to hash out our concerns. And it was great to be like, I need you to do this work. You chose to be an MLA. So, or an MP, whichever we're talking, provincial, federally, but you want this position. Now I'm going to make you work. Yeah. This is what the job entails. This is your job description. You are to hear me, and then you are to take on my concern. And then then I'm going to come back in and report to me what they said. Yeah. You are the appointed person. So use that to your advantage. It's easy. It's not necessarily say fun, but it was really quite, it felt good to be able to go in there and be like, hey, I have this concern. And what do you think about this? And what do you think can be done? And what do you know that I don't know, that I'm not hearing? I want to hear it from the horse's mouth. And so it really was 30 minutes, got a lot done within the 30 minutes. It was great. And it was like, okay, well, this was, because some people, and I've been like, to the government, I don't really want to get involved. Like, I don't really want to talk to anybody. I just do my thing and carry on. But it feels good to be involved, because if you have a concern or a complaint, then do something about it. I mean, you can just sit in your house and complain about it. You can do a lot from your computer. You can do things that way as well. A lot can get done that way. But a face-to-face or a phone call is incredibly impactful, because then there's the language and the tone, and people are hearing, and then there's accountability as well, because like, I'm going to be coming back and I want to hear what happened at your meeting, and I'd like you to share that with me. And so it's like, okay, well, she's coming back to talk, and I have the right to do that. And there's so many other of us. It's like, yeah, I'm a citizen here, and you're making a decision based for me. And so you need to also have my input if I think that's a good decision or not. Otherwise, if it happens and I don't like it, well, if I didn't do anything about it, well, that's on me for not doing anything. So, is there any last things that you want to share? Tell, because you've got courses and things. I mean, we're just scraping a very perfect surface here. So
do you have 10 more hours?
Yeah, totally. Let people know like where, because you've got so much information to share. I want them to know about it.
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at Emma_green@home. I've got a Facebook group called the Green Product Forum, where you can go in and ask for advice and see what products people have tried and used and work, because it's one thing to find a healthy product, but you also need something that is going to perform. And my website has a ton of blogs and resources and links to all of my courses. I've got things like guides for personal care and cleaners, guide to healthy construction.
Oh no, I think we lost. Home. Oh, there you're. Okay, good. You're okay. It was a small blip, but you're back. It's
okay. Yeah. So all the courses and guides and stuff you can find at greenathome.ca.
Okay. Oh, awesome. I'll put that in the link. I'm also going to be doing it in another email blast. So if you guys are not on my email list, you can go to my website, www.drtaylorbean.com. Scroll down to the Thrive in Immunity community and plop your email in, because I'm going to be sending, so I'm going to put everything. I like emails because you can keep things neat and tidy and all in one place. And you can get that information there where it's on here, which is great, but I'll share the video again and all these links, because I think I'm going to join the Facebook group, because awesome. I have questions about laundry detergent and ones that work.
That is probably the most frequently asked question.
I want natural, but it's got to get the stain out. Oh, my kids eat dark things, blueberries and stuff. So anyways. Okay. Well, thank you so much for this.
Thanks
This
for
is
having me.
fantastic. I learned a lot. And so, anyways, I'm going to share this. Thank you everyone for being here. This is great. An hour of info. So anyways,
Yeah, and if someone's watching the recording and you have questions, just tag me in the comment, and I should see that I'm
yeah,
tagged, and I'll pop in and reply too.
awesome. Okay, cool. Okay. Bye everyone. Bye, Emma.
Bye.